Hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Talkin Beavers as Oregon State comes off a very competitive effort in Salt Lake City against the #1 team in the South. Now they get a chance to chase down Chosen Rosen, the chosen one, the anointed one, and UCLA coming in at 6-2 and ranked 22nd in the country. We've got a lot to get to. Let's get started now on Talkin Beavers. From the Flat Tail Brewing Studios as we get a first look at the beautiful campus in fall at Oregon State University. We welcome you to our Flat Tail Brewing Studios. Mike Parker, along with Sports Illustrated's Lindsey Schnell and former Beaver great and NFLer Slade Norris, as we welcome you into another very busy edition of Talkin Beavers, and one that, quite frankly, folks, I'm excited about because even though it wasn't a win in Salt Lake City for the Beavers, it certainly seemed to feel better coming out, getting on that plane and coming home. I thought the guys, Lindsey, put a very admirable effort together they can build on now going forward. Hey,
I was really impressed. I mean, let's remember that before this game kicked, Nigel Burton said on the Pac-12 networks that he thought the Beavers would get beat by 50. Yeah. And while I thought that that was an exaggeration, I was like, yeah, it's probably going to be ugly. And they were in it, Mike. They were in it at halftime. They were still in it late into the game. I thought, and it was interesting listening to the Pac-12 broadcast because the analysts were talking about these guys, they're doing their jobs. They're doing their jobs. And we have heard coaches say all year that if we just do our jobs, it will work. So, Slade, I thought there were a lot of good things.
I completely agree with you. Watching the defense, I mean, we'll get to the defense later in the show, but I just want to talk about, they were playing Utah, and the players knew it was Utah, and there's a connection there with the coaching staff, and the coaches wanted to compete in this game, and the players sat there, they stood up for them, they matched Utah with their physicality, which is what Utah does. They beat you to the punch, and they're going to punch you in the mouth. Our D-line stood right up there with them, took their punch, lasted all the way through the game. I was so impressed, and then just the competition of it. I loved seeing that.
It was one of the more experienced teams in the league in Utah going up against Oregon State, the youngest team in the league, and a guy making his first true start at quarterback. The keys given to Nick Mitchell after Seth Collins injured his knee during the week. So what about Nick Mitchell? And Slade, your thoughts about how the redshirt freshman from North Bend, Washington performed?
Hey, first half, he was 9 for 12. I mean, he looked very, very good. Granted, he was a little slow on some of his reads and a little inaccurate as the game went on, and he was trying to press things to get the win. But, I mean, hey, we're all, you know, goo-goo eyes over Seth and his ability to run the ball, but Nick did the same thing. Not the same thing to that extent, but I mean, he can run the ball, he can run that offense and do very well. So just give him some more time to develop. I'm not saying that he should take it from Seth. Seth's down right now with an injury, but I was impressed with what I saw going against the Pac-12's hardest defense.
He's a pretty steadying presence, I thought, you know, and that's, yeah, he's not a human highlight reel, and we're going to talk more about that battle later. But for what Nick, you know, walking in, that's a hostile environment. It's tough to win in Salt Lake City. I remember when the Beavers won there a couple years ago, Mike Riley and all the players saying, like, this is a brutal place to play. And Nick looked smooth and just calm. And, you know, one thing that he doesn't, I think almost kind of like Mannion, doesn't express a lot of emotion either way, but that can be really, really steadying in the huddle for guys.
I agree. You could be up by 50 or down by 50. You'd never know by looking at his face when you're sitting there in the huddle or just throughout the whole entire game. So that is a nice thing to have. And it's nice to have when you're a young player. Because,
absolutely.
I mean, you can get really rattled really easily.
And when you have a young team around you, right? Yeah. Like, they're going to feed off him. They're always going to feed off the quarterback.
I agree.
Well, and as you talked about, I mean, Gary Anderson gave him the keys to the game this week, and Gary has not only knowing, and we'll talk more about it later in terms of the starter against UCLA this Saturday, but Gary was impressed and maybe even a little bit surprised by not only the ability to throw, not that so much, but the ability Nick showed in running the football.
Well, his ability to run is much better than one may think, and I thought he could run pretty well as we went through camp, but he seems to be a young man that has really good angles when the game is on the line or he has to make a play. You know, some quarterbacks will come out of there and they're athletic enough to go get the yards, and Nick kind of understands the angles. He learns how to protect himself. He gets what he needs and is able to get down and made good decisions outside of the pocket. I thought he threw the ball extremely well, and I think given the opportunity to have more time within the pocket, which hopefully we can do as we move forward, he'll get the ball through the reads, you know, even cleaner than he was. So, you know, at the end of the day, that was his real true first start, if you will, and playing the whole game and understanding it was his team. I also felt like the team, reacted in a positive way to him. So it was a good step. We'd all like to have some throws back, some calls back, some whatever it is on offense, defense, and special teams. But he gave us an opportunity to be able to stay in the game and manage it enough to be able to be within striking distance. And now we've just got to get him and the rest of the offense to take the next step to score more points. I think Nick gives us an opportunity to have some QB runs. Are we going to be as aggressive as we have been in the past with the QB runs? No, because I don't think, again, you can win a championship by doing that as we continue to move forward. You have to have it. I like to run the quarterback. I like them to have an option, but it needs to be educated options, and it can't be that's how we win games is with a running quarterback.
Gary Anderson talking about the running ability, but also offensive coordinator Dave Baldwin has said, too, the thing that he's liked about Nick is he'll run the offense. There are times on defense where Kalani has said, guys, don't stay in their assignments and just run what they've been told to do, maybe trying to do too much. I didn't see any of that in Nick Mitchell on the offenses.
Yeah, I like what Anderson said there about an educated run, and it's about having a smart quarterback. That's what type of quarterback will thrive in this system, and Nick seems to be, I don't know if I want to say cerebral necessarily because we haven't seen a ton from him, but he's just kind of feeling everything out, and this is what's called, we're going to go with it. Yeah. He was just calm. That's the word that keeps coming back to me when I watched him. He wasn't panicking at any point.
And like Coach said, they did rally around him. Only giving up 1 sack to Utah. That's pretty impressive. Huge. Right there. The O-line did great. He did great getting the ball away. But also, his ability to run, I got to get back to it again. That spin move he did on the first down. That
breaking a tackle.
That was a big play right there. Yeah. Put a good hit on him. He just spun right off of the first down. Plays like that, it's easy to rally around a guy.
The thing, too, you mentioned that offensive line. How about the job that Will Hopkins and Drew Clarkson and Cammie Delp had to do against that group? That was very impressive. But we'll get more as the show rolls along on the quarterback situation moving forward. But when you talk about the run game, Storm Bars Woods is still a huge part of it, and Storm is moving up in the Beaver record books. We'll talk about that on Talkin Beavers. Talkin Beavers rolls on. Jim Mora Jr., no, Jim L. Mora, he likes to be called. Coming up, we'll talk more about UCLA. Injuries aside, still a very talented group. The first meeting between the two teams since 2012, a great Beaver win down in the Rose Bowl. Time for our Wilson Motors game balls coming out of Salt Lake City. Lindsay?
Nick Mitchell, I need a thesaurus because I can't think of any other words for calm, but that's what I liked about him. Calm, cool, collected in his first start in a hostile environment. The crowd kind of went dead at Utah, I thought, when Nick had a big part to do with that. And then, of course, there was also the defense. Slade, that was part of why the crowd was quiet.
Obviously, it was the defense.
Oh, yeah.
It was
that's all you ever want to talk about. This could be talking defense. Slade would be thrilled.
I love it, though. I'm with you. I'm with you, Slade. I love it. Go ahead.
It's about time this D-line stepped up and really made an impact on the game, and they did. They took Utah's, big offensive line and Devontae Booker, this guy who's, I think, the best rushing back in the Pac-12.
I disagree with that, but I think that is
we can argue later. Okay. I'm going to be right. But after the first 2 drives, 110 out of 174 of the rushing yards occurred in those first 2. After that, they really stopped Devontae, which is a huge task. And it wasn't just that they were at the line. They were actually getting through the line, making some tackles in the backfield, which we hadn't seen before. Yeah. We just started seeing that last week with Pekka when he made that great play. And all of a sudden this week, these guys are continuing to progress. And I love to see that.
Yeah, I thought that a big thing with that, too, was even if Booker is not the best running back in the Pac-12, because I believe that it's Royce Freeman at Oregon, he has gashed a lot of teams. And he gashed them the first quarter, and then they kept him in check. So still got to put together a complete game, right? But, hey, it's better that you had a bad first quarter than a whole bad first half. I just saw a lot of improvement.
And they put a stop to a guy on 3rd and 4th down short yardage situations. He is the best in the country. Maybe not the Pac-12, but the best in the country on 3rd and 4th down, and they stoned him twice in a row. That was very impressive. Now, the Beavers running game didn't feature Ryan Nall. We'll get to that, but it did enough for a veteran player who's done a lot for the program in Storm Bars Woods, who's now number 5 all-time rushing. Look at the guys ahead of him. them. Steven Jackson, Evanson, Jaquiz, Ken Simon, and only Ken and Storm Bars Woods essentially featured backs in all 4 years. The others for just 3. That's good company, though, Lindsay, that Storm is in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you look at Storm, he's played a lot. He's played since he was young. That's big for him. He's a great ambassador of this program. Cool to see him lock up the record books. What I'm curious about is how soon will someone catch him now in this new offense? Under Riley, they were always going to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And part of the reason they had struggled the last few years is they had lost a Ken Simonton, a Jaquiz Rogers, that type of thing. So, Slade, I'm curious to see, because we've talked a lot about, right, when we look at the stats after games, it's not the running backs that are leading the rushing. It's typically the quarterbacks. But in the next few years, how does that change?
I think they're going to develop more into that Utah style where they're going to get some big bruising back. That's kind of what Anderson's always done. I mean, look at Melvin Gordon and what he did over there with Wisconsin. Had a great season. I mean, led everything with the rushing. So that's what they're going to develop into once they get the recruits in that they want to have.
The thing about Ryan Nall I mentioned, he went from 20 carries against Colorado to 0 carries against Utah. He did have 2 receptions. But let's talk about the Nall factor in the running game. And here he's used coming out of the backfield and again running downhill. He delivers the blow. He's so fun to watch. Here he makes a very nice play to stretch forward to help the Beavers keep a drive alive. But no carries. Slade, what were your thoughts?
Slade called this. Slade totally predicted this last week.
What's the reason that he didn't carry the ball as a running back?
It doesn't fit our scheme. And right now, we know going into this game, we're not going to be able to run up the middle against Utah's front 7. It's just not going to happen. So we had to get to the edge. And Ryan, love the guy, love his effort. He's a hard bruising back. He isn't a stretch player. And so we had to get the ball to Bolden going around the edge, to Lucas coming around, and also to Storm. Storm has that speed to get out there. So it didn't fit our game plan. This next week, watch. I think we're going to see him again because I think it does fit our game plan. I think we can run against this UCLA team.
And you know what? This is a step forward for the offense too, right? Like, okay, so we saw what Nall could do against Colorado. Now bringing in other pieces. I was very excited when I looked at Bolden's stats that he seems to kind of be getting back to himself a little bit.
Yes.
You need versatility to win. Good teams can do a lot of things well, and maybe that's where Oregon State is headed.
And I did love how they used him in the passing game because you're sitting there watching film, and every single time he comes in, it's going to be power run up the middle, and all of a sudden now, the passing game all over the place. Now you kind of throw him off guard a little bit.
We talked about this after the very first game, when there was all that shifting on the goal line, that there's something to be said about unpredictability, which Oregon State, that's not a word that you would have associated with them over the past decade. If you can catch people by surprise, because you've had to try to tackle people that you didn't expect to have to tackle. That's huge.
And we saw Ryan on the field a lot, and whether he was carrying the football, he was oftentimes in power plays and plays to the edge, a lead blocker. And nobody likes to see Ryan Nall, whether blocking, running, or receiving, running at him. So Nall was still a factor, even though he didn't carry the football specifically. Coming up, a segment I know is going to be near and dear to Slade's heart because it's more about the Beavers' defensive effort against Utah. Kalani Sitake very proud of the way his guys improved as the game went along, and Jonathan Old Man Willis making plays. That's coming up on Talkin Beavers. Welcome back to Talkin Beavers. Time for the Les Schwab Quick Fix. Les Schwab doing the right thing since 1952, and as the numbers indicate, the Beavers have done a fix of sorts on defense. Even the Washington State game, only 121 yards in the second half of the Cougs, and the Beavers have followed that up with 328 and 372 total yards allowed. That's very impressive at any level, particularly in this era of wide open offenses. So the Beavers starting to find themselves on the defensive side. Part of the reason, the play of senior defensive end Jalen Grimble, my radio broadcast partner, referring to Jalen as Nimble Grimble in Salt Lake City. A very good line.
Nimble Grimble.
And Jalen was feeling good and healthy and made plays as a result.
Man, if I can go, I'm gonna go. And I played in the game on Saturday. I'm pain-free right now, so that's the main thing. As long as I stay like that, I'll keep moving forward.
But you could have made plays like this all along. Is that sort of how you view it if you were healthy enough to do it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. this past weekend was big for me. It meant a lot to me to play in that game, and it struck me emotionally too. Me missing all the games that I have. I feel like I've let a part of Beaver Nation down because there was so much expected of me to be here. But I got these last 4 games left, and it's up to me to prove that it was never just talk.
Was it tempting to try to say, okay, I'm ready, earlier than you did, or was it pretty obvious that you weren't able to go?
I did it every week. You know what I mean? I went to every game. I dressed for every game. I went through pregame warm-ups for every game, and based on the coach's judgment, they watched me, and if they felt like I wasn't ready, that was it. And my coach used to tell me you have to accept it. Sometimes the pregame warm-up is going to be my game, and I went out there and tried. I care about this team, so I gave it my best effort. They said I wasn't ready, and I didn't play.
Was it
Jalen Grimble coming back from that chop block at USC last year, has lost a lot of weight, gotten in better condition, but still it's been somewhat of a slow road back. But to see him making plays, Lindsay, in Salt Lake City was exciting for everybody in Beaver Nation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember when Jalen got on campus, it feels like 10 years ago at this point. Certainly it wasn't. But, I believe he went to Bishop Gorman, right?
Mm-hmm.
I knew
in
that
Vegas.
Just off the top of my head, Mike, because your encyclopedic knowledge is rubbing off on me. I believe he was a 5-star, goes to Miami and then comes back, and everyone was so excited. This is the type of kid that can change your program. And to see him contribute, that's huge. And I just think building blocks of confidence are big with a young team. You go into a place like Utah, it's tough to win there. They're very good. They're very physical. Even if you don't win, I would think that players feel good about themselves. That sounds weird to say after a loss, but I think you know what I mean.
You can take positives away from this loss for sure, and I think they definitely will after this game. And getting him back, I mean, we really competed with what Utah does best, and that's run the ball. And we held up to the rushing attack for most of the game, outside the first two series right there. But watching him make plays was so awesome. But just having him there for the depth to rotate in, to give guys a break, that's what's so big about this. And then any plays he makes on top of that is just, frosting on the cake.
Another player that has come so far, linebacker Jonathan Willis. They call him Old Man. At Michigan, at times, he was just flat out not where he needed to be, or even when he wasn't able to make a play. But Jonathan Willis had his best game by far as a Beaver as he continues to grow. And that's going to be a big help to Elisa Tuiaki, the linebackers coach, and the rest of the Beaver defense. What did you see going on, Slade, with Willis all over the field?
I love what he did out there. Watching these younger players come in and these names we haven't seen a lot for coming to these games, it's been awesome. And his vision, I was surprised with. The way he flew to the line of scrimmage and reacted once he saw things, I was surprised with too. I'm excited to see how he grows as a player and progresses, because if we can get guys like that playing with that mentality and that quickness and aggressiveness, we're going to be a good defense.
Yeah, I talked to Kalani Sitake after the game, and he had the same reaction. He was stoked. This is a young kid. He comes in, and look at his stats. He's just jumping off the page, jumping off the field, and that's huge. When they can string together a complete game. And dude, why not this week? UCLA is banged up. This is the best time ever to be playing UCLA.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Bruins as we go forward, but I was really impressed with Jonathan Willis. Justin Strong one time flew in and knocked Devontae Booker backwards. I don't know if Devontae Booker's ever been knocked backwards.
Yeah, that doesn't happen to him very often.
So that was a good sign, to be sure. And the other thing that was good to see, the Beavers' improvement as the season's gone along in special teams. Their punt coverage was outstanding.
And that's against the #1 returner in the Pac-12 for sure, Britton. He's had a great season so far, and he did absolutely nothing against the defense. Look right there. I mean, they completely just pack him in. He has nowhere to go, and this is basically every single play. Our punter did a great job pinning him down there, and then the guys finished. They tackled. They wrapped up when they tackled, which is huge. But no, I loved seeing this, and it really, really helped us out getting that field possession battle.
What's really interesting to me after this game is that, after Colorado, I thought that could be a turning point. Things could really spiral out of control when you lose to what has long been the worst team in the conference. I thought that they would come out flat. I thought that it could get ugly early, and I think that Colorado was a turning point, maybe for the better, which I didn't anticipate that at all, and that speaks a lot to what Anderson and his staff have been able to communicate in the locker room and continually getting guys to buy in. It's hard during a culture change We've talked about that, but I just have so much respect for the staff and the players and everyone involved in the program after what I saw at Utah.
Well, a lot of things to build on, to be sure. And Nigel Burton, I'm sure, observed all of the game and every play very carefully, and we'll have a Burton's breakdown coming up. Nigel, what do you have for us?
Hey, Mike, coming up next, I'm going to show you why Dave Baldwin deserves the Offensive Coordinator of the Week award. You don't want to miss it.
Oregon State head coach Gary Anderson expectedly was asked at his press availability on Monday, okay, UCLA coming to town. Nick Mitchell started at Utah. What about this Saturday against the UCLA Bruins? And the head coach had a quick and ready answer.
Yeah, Nick will start Saturday for sure. You know, Seth is still in a position to, the whole report will come out, and to be quite frank and honest with you, I'm looking forward to getting in, and I need to talk with the docs again and talk with Seth and figure out exactly what the scenario is, but I don't expect, much practice out of him this week for sure, if any. So it'll be Nick and Marcus will be out there, and we'll see how that all goes. But Seth had a great attitude today, and told me he aced his 2 tests when he didn't go. So if he didn't go on the trip and he sat here and took his tests as a freshman and aced 2 of his tests, that puts a smile on my face also.
Now, it's good indeed that Seth made the most of the time and not making the trip to Salt Lake City. He's dressing but not really practicing much this week. And Coach Anderson has taken any sort of mystery out of it. He doesn't talk about, well, we'll see. It's day to day. He just said early in the week that Nick Mitchell's the starter this Saturday.
I think that first of all, if someone's not going to practice, people are going to figure that out. But also, when you have a young offense and you have an offense that's trying to figure out a lot of stuff, you need to be able to have your guys rally around someone early on. Don't you think, Slade? The people need to know this is who our leader's going to be.
I do agree with that. But I think this is a great opportunity for the team because this year, we're not fighting for a playoff spot right now. This year is all about gaining experience.
Fighting for full eligibility right now.
We're not fighting for much, except for trying to get the team better for the future.
You're fighting for a lot of pride.
Having both these guys play only makes our future better, so we can really test out what we have for both quarterbacks going into next year, next fall camp. They can really battle it out. So once Seth gets back healthy, I want to see him play. I want to see them share snaps, and I want to see him go through and use Seth for his legs, use Nick for his arm, and develop the future.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've talked since the beginning of the season about, oh my gosh, when Seth gets hurt, they're in a lot of trouble, right? Okay, well, Seth gets hurt and they play maybe their best game of the season.
Against the best defense.
Against the best defense in the Pac-12. So I thought that was really impressive, and that got, a big building block. And here's the other thing. Seth's greatest ability, in my opinion, he has this wonderful, he can make these plays. He's very emotional. That's a really good thing. That's part of why Jordan Poyer's my favorite player of all time, right? That's that as a player, that hypes you up. Seth has to learn how to harness that, and we've talked about that. Those emotional ups and downs as a freshman, he's still learning how to deal with that. Nick is much more stoic, and right now I think that's something that can be good for them.
And what I do like to see about Seth, too, he hasn't developed the Ryan Mallett syndrome. He isn't sitting back there pouting and throwing a hissy fit that he's not the one playing anymore.
Wasn't it against Colorado? Wasn't he leering?
Yeah, he was
very much on the sideline.
Very much involved in the game. Yeah. And so right now, with him being out, this is also a great learning opportunity because you have to be able to learn from film.
Yes.
And so now he can go through and watch what Nick does in the game and really develop in that mental aspect of the game.
I agree.
Well, Nigel has already talked to us a little bit about what he was going to get to. That Dave Baldwin should be the offensive coordinator of the week. Dave going with a guy making his first start, essentially a quarterback, a makeshift offensive line on the left side against one of the best defenses in the country. So as we get to Burton's breakdown, brought to you by Standard TV and Appliance. Standard TV and Appliance, setting the standard since 1947. Nigel?
So Dave Baldwin and the offensive coaching staff for the Beavers had their work cut out for them this week, playing at Utah in one of the best defenses in the entire Pac-12. Honestly, they were pretty outmanned. They were also facing the best secondary. So Coach Baldwin did a great job using bunch formations, stacked wide receivers, and all kinds of motions to use the Utah man-to-man scheme against itself. Let's take a look at the In Focus Mondo Pad collaboration that works. Let's see what we're talking about. Now, here, it's 3rd and short. And what Coach Baldwin does is he sends Victor Bolden in motion from the running back's position. And all he's going to do is a quick out route. He sends the number 2 and the number 3 receivers on hitches in order to pick the man who's responsible for covering Victor Bolden in coverage. As the defender for Utah tries to run through, he runs into too much, and he can't get to Victor Bolden. In addition, he sends Nick Mitchell on a rollout, thereby nullifying the great pass rush that Utah has. The result? An easy first down for the Beavers. Now, later on in the game, he uses the same exact concepts down in the red zone when it really matters. Here, he sends Victor Bolden in motion again and out to the flat. Utah's defender, who's responsible for him, will end up getting picked in the end zone by the outside wide receiver. Just to make sure that the rush doesn't get to Nick Mitchell, once again, send him on a quick rollout for touchdown Beavs. It was a thing of beauty to watch. Ball's out quickly, it's an easy throw, and an easy touchdown. Dave Baldwin did a great job of putting Nick Mitchell in the offense in position to be successful versus a vaunted Utah defense.
Great stuff, Nigel. Thanks for breaking it down that way. And to Victor Bolden's great credit, he made a much tougher catch than the previous pass, which was right in his hands and fell out. On that first play that Nigel broke down for us, I got to get this in. It was on the 3rd and 4 play that Nigel described. And as Victor was catching it and running to the sideline, Michael Conforto was taking a first pitch into the right field upper deck in that moment. So I was monitor here, game here.
That's
Congratulations to Michael Conforto and Victor Bolden.
That's like, wasn't it Brandon Cooks that ran for a touchdown and the crowd went crazy because the Ducks had just lost to Arizona like 2 years ago at the exact same time?
Yeah, it was a sweet moment in time, no question. And this was, too, first down Beavers, home run Conforto. So that was great stuff to watch. Thanks to Nigel for breaking it all down for us. Coming up, we are going to learn more about the UCLA Bruins, a team very much in the hunt in the South. If they went out, they win the South. They know that. We're going to talk more about Jim Elmore's team next on Talkin Beavers. Welcome back to Talkin Beavers. UCLA on the road to Reser Stadium in Corvallis Saturday afternoon at 1:30. The last time they went on the road, they had it handed to them by Stanford, but they've recovered with some impressive performances against California and Colorado in victories in the Rose Bowl. 3 of the next 4, though, for UCLA will be on the road, beginning with the Beavers at Reser Stadium. What kind of team is coming in? And we know it's a banged-up team, but this is still a very talented team, and they've had some great success on offense where they've been a little less banged up.
Okay, so coming into the season, a lot of people thought UCLA was going to be a dark horse playoff contender, right? They returned 17 or 18 starters, I don't remember, and they had maybe the best true freshman in the country, and Josh Rosen. They're very, very, very good at every position. They look how good they are at pass yards, right? That's number 4 in the conference, but I think that they're beatable. I think this is the best time to play UCLA if you're anybody, because they are so beat up. They've lost multiple defensive players for the year, but Rosen's a baller.
Well, look at that throw.
What's your take on that? You just agree?
Rosen
You're nodding?
is a baller. No, I mean, he really is. But the game runs through their running game. I mean, as good as Rosen is, they need the run game to go. And Paul Perkins is that man.
Maybe Paul Perkins is the best running back in the Pac-12.
You know, hey, I might be able to agree with that, because what he does in the passing game.
So what you're really saying is you just don't want it to be Royce Freeman because he's a Duck.
And I'd like you being wrong, too. But, I mean, no. But Paul Perkins is very good. He does a lot for this team. But Josh, man, his ability as a freshman to come in and do what he's done, to carry this team through all the injuries, has been really impressive.
And he's also been the subject, we'll talk a little bit more about it later, of some tough love from his coach. And he's not phased. When you talk about Nick Mitchell's poise as a redshirt freshman, this is a true freshman, 5-star, #1 quarterback in the country, according to most recruiting services, and he's handled it well, Slade.
He has, but he's had a lot of help from his wide receivers with Peyton. They roomed together when he first came into fall camp. They were roommates. He's kind of mentored him through the process. Did they have the hot
tub in their room?
I can't guarantee that. I'm not sure.
Slade, did you ever have a hot tub in your dorm room? Are you regretting that? That's something that
I'm
scared to hear the answer to this suddenly.
I don't know how to answer this on TV. So.
I don't think you need to. Hey, we were talking and certainly excited about the Oregon State defensive improvement of late. UCLA has all kinds of talent, as the Bruins always do on defense. But on the defensive side, that's a long list of key injuries. Miles Jack no longer in the program, getting ready for the NFL. But look at
all those linebackers.
That's like an entire defense.
Now, a lot of them have come back, but Moreau, a great corner, Vanderro's out for the season. They've had
Vanderdoes was a huge loss.
It indeed was, but it's still a very talented defensive group, and we saw Ishmael Adams, he's a great back. He's back, even though he's been hurt a little bit, a great cornerback. This is still a talented group, Slade.
It is, you know, and if they can figure out a way to get everybody in the field, that'd be great. But they give up a lot of yards up and down the field. But once they get to the red zone, even though they're still giving up points, they get down there a ton. They're still third in the Pac-12 in red zone conversions. So we have to go through and make sure when we get down to that end zone, we've got to put it in. This last game, I mean, shoot, the 2 times we got down there, we couldn't punch it in the beginning. Had we punched it in, that game might have been different last week.
Yeah, you're not beating UCLA with field goals.
No,
I know that much.
Colorado, how about this? Colorado ran 114 plays.
Colorado should have beat them 2 years in a row now.
Colorado should have won this game. They missed a couple of field goals and missed some opportunities, but 114 plays, and yet Coach Mora was proud of the way he said, here's what he said: it was a gazillion degrees outside. They ran 1,000 plays against us, and we still won. Yeah, our guys were tired, but I'm proud of them. They are tired and banged up, so the Beavers need to be able to run the football.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think they had the ball for 41 minutes of that game. And so this defense, they were saying, there's quotes in the paper saying, I was too tired after the game to actually celebrate. And so I don't care how young you are. If you come through a game like that and go try to play next week, you're still going to have some leftover effects from being on the field that long in the game before.
And I thought the big thing that for Oregon State, you know, and Kalani and I talked about this, I asked him, like, okay, well, who do you have to contain, right? This is such a loaded roster. He said, I am truly more concerned about us and about what we do. And I think part of that is because we're finally seeing those building blocks. You know, schematically, Oregon State did some different things. They were able to mix up some blitzes. Like, they just threw some different looks, which at one point they had kind of had to dumb everything down. So all of this is to say we're talking about this huge step forward for OSU. Okay, you got to keep going forward, right? Here comes a very talented team into your house. You need to defend it. No steps backwards, and let's also try not to stay stagnant.
And keep moving the chains on third down, as they did, not only 3rd and 4, but 3rd and 14 for 16 yards, and keep that banged-up defense on the field a little bit longer. Well, Slade Norris played proud and hard throughout his career at Oregon State, and whether fatigued or facing adversity, Slade is always ready for another edition as the Beavers come back home to UCLA. It's our own Slade Norris at the OSU Beavers store.
I'm here in Salem today at the Kaiser Station location, and we are focusing on the 3 for $25 t-shirt sale they have going on all year long. And I cannot emphasize how many t-shirts we have here. We're playing UCLA this week, so come down here and pick up all these shirts for your dad. You can get one for every quarter for the rest of the season. So guys, get over here, pick up your t-shirts, men's, women's, children's. It comes in all different types and sizes. OSU Beaver Store, fans start here.
If you could invite 3 people over for dinner, living human beings, who would those 3 people be?
I'd invite my wife, Shannon. I'd invite my mom and dad.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
How about that?
Well, how about that, to be sure? It's time for our Toyota of Portland on Broadway tune-up with Slade Norris at the In Focus Mondo Pad playoffs. And people were talking about Jim Elmore. Don't call me Junior. Jim Elmore, not Jim Mora Jr., but the younger Mora, and UCLA was being talked about. Playoffs earlier this season. They've had a rash of injuries, as we talked about earlier, but make no mistake, Slade, they've got some very good weapons right here.
They definitely do. And to start us off, we're going to talk about a guy who has had to deal with most of those injuries, and that's Coach Tom Bradley. Ever since Miles Jack went down, they've only had 4 games they've held an opponent under 30 points. That's 4 out of 5 games they have not held the opponent under 30 points. It's been a struggle. Just last game, he was quoted, "We had guys in the game who had never practiced at the position before. Our game plan got diluted. We figured out what we could do and did the best that we could." He's having to take guys out of position, throw them into this scheme, and just try to piece things together and get them to work. He's really, if he can go through and develop some kind of game plan, a slower offense, now that's a positive for them. It's going to be tough for him, and he's done a great job with what he has.
Playing 2 different defenses, he said at times last week. Slade, when you get into that, though, it's just football instincts taking over for some of those guys.
It is. You know, I've played all different positions on defense. We all know that. And no matter where you are, just go get the ball and go get it. Rely on your instincts.
Bradley is indeed a great defensive coordinator throughout, so he'll have some answers ready, but he has talented players. But when I look at the rest of the weaponry, all on the offensive side.
It is, and the offensive side is what I'm worried about. We'll start with Jordan Payton right here. He's an interesting guy. Outside of football, he started a clothing line with 2 different high school friends called LAC Clothing Line. Really talented guy, really driven, obviously. But right here, he leads UCLA right now in nearly every single receiving stat you can have. Not leading, but he's really marching up there. And they'll go through, they use him for basically everything. A real speedy guy. He's 3rd in the Pac-12 in receiving yards. He's a big threat we have to stop.
And Devin Fuller is not even on this list, but he's another guy that's quite capable of big plays. We're left with the running back and the quarterback. In your view, who's number 2 here?
You know what? I'm going to go with Paul on this one right here.
Okay.
But he's number 2 only because he's been banged up, and I don't know how full strength he'll be. He's a real talented back. They use him both in the passing game and the running game. He had 118 rushing yards last week while banged up, an 82-yard touchdown, and then another touchdown receiving. If we can stop him, I really think we got a great chance at winning this game. But then again, they got another guy coming back in behind him who's also a good back. And so it's going to be tough. That's why Josh took number 1.
Certainly not appropriately named So-So. He's far better than that. But Perkins, I think your point is well taken that he did rush for 118, 82 untouched on that one play, beautifully blocked. So he wasn't really in that mode that he was last year in leading the conference in rushing. And that leaves Chosen Rosen, the anointed one. Jim Elmore mocked that earlier this year. But what about Josh?
So Josh is a great talent. Coming in as a freshman, I mean, to be honest, he's really saved this team. They were supposed to be this great defensive team. We'll see how the offense goes. All of a sudden, he steps in, and the offense is brilliant. All the defenders going down. They've really had to score a ton of points and light the scoreboard in order to win any games this year, and he has done that. Only really one bad game against BYU he's had so far, with 3 interceptions. Other than that, he's been pretty brilliant.
And he has received some tough love from Jim Elmore in camp, the anointed one, and he turned to reporters and after Rosen had thrown a couple of errant passes. You see why I haven't named a starter yet, so he used the media to kind of fire up Chosen Rosen, and he's been great. UCLA still very much alive for a lot of things, and when we come back, we'll get some final thoughts from Slade and Lindsay as we prepare for the Beavers and UCLA coming up at Reser Stadium on Saturday. That's next as we wrap it up on Talkin Beavers. Welcome back into Talkin Beavers, one of the great settings for college football. Certainly in this time of year in autumn, Reser Stadium will be the site for the Beavers and UCLA Saturday afternoon at 1:30. Boy, a rare afternoon game. We've got you covered, getting you ready for the game. Beavers Inside the Huddle with Gary Anderson Thursday at 8. Hashtag Beavers Football Friday night at 9 with Slade and company. CSN Game Day on Saturday, 9 a.m. And please note, next Wednesday, Talkin Beavers at 9:30. And we hope you'll join us for all of the great Oregon State programming as the Beavers get ready for the UCLA Bruins. And Slade, Lindsay, coming off, and we've talked about the momentum kind of perhaps the team feels like it has coming out of Salt Lake City. So to keep it going, one thing that they can do, need to do to beat UCLA.
Play a complete game. They're really close. They played a half a few times. They played 3 quarters at at Utah, but play a complete game. And man, if you can get it, if you are close in the 4th quarter, anything can happen, especially at home.
You're just stealing my thunder here. It's pretty much what I was going to say. But, you know, turnovers last week, I really needed some. Joshua James, if he could have grabbed that one, I think it would have changed the game. But we kept it close in the first half. It was only 14-6 going into the second half. Now with UCLA, they've been outscored in 4 of their 5 Pac-12 games in the second half. So I think if we keep this game close, keep them on our heels, by the time the second half comes along, that defense starts feeling the effects of last week, gets tired out. I really think we got a great shot to win this game. We'll come back up, take that lead, and win it.
There's also something you said, maybe the football gods like, oh, UCLA a loss since this 2 years in a row now that Colorado has been heartbroken by the Bruins. So that could work in their advantage.
This feels like it may seem a silly question, but what about if you win the toss, taking the football instead of putting the defense, which has been scored upon 5 straight games? Would you flip that, do you think, Slade? Would that be, if you win the toss, take the ball?
I think that'd show a lot of faith in the offense right there. You're at home, get a quick score early, get the fans really into it. I'd love that.
I think that the coaches are going to know a lot more than we do.
They do, but I'm just saying, you know, if you're trying to kind of change the track or the groove that you're in, the better thing, of course, if they defer their choice, get a 3-and-out against Perkins, Rosen, and company on
yeah, because it's not just about pressure. It's not just about showing confidence. They're putting a lot of pressure on the offense then right away.
That's true. And, although we did see Nick Mitchell, as you talked about, being calm, poised. I can't think of anything else either, so bring a thesaurus next time. But, you know, poised, calm, but also that sense of aggressiveness they showed. They need to bring all of that to Saturday afternoon, of all things. 1:30 Saturday, the Beavers at home against the UCLA Bruins. We're expecting a great atmosphere and hope that you'll be part of it, not only at Reser Stadium, but of course with all of the other programming coming inside the huddle with Gary Anderson and Steve Priest, and of course hashtag Beavers Football with Slade on Friday. Reser Stadium should be loud and raucous Saturday afternoon, 1:30. The Beavers and Bruins. We'll talk about it again next week. Thanks for joining us.